The Legend of Hero series is one of those game franchises which I've always heard good things about, but for one reason or another, I just haven't got around to playing it. So it's about time I made a video on one. Let me first say that if I wasn't reviewing this game, I would have most likely dropped it. The prologue was an awful introduction to this game. This definitely suffers from slow starter syndrome. Once you get past the prologue, however, the rest of the game begins to shine. Let's begin with the story. It's actually pretty dang good. Not only do you uncover a bunch of interlinking mysteries, you get to have some input on how they get solved. A good few of the characters are likeable too, although I have my issues with the main cast. Skill and character ability customization is a lot of fun too. Yes, the characters are limited to what the game gives them stat-wise, however you can decide what elements they master and even the added effects of their attacks. For example, I loved giving my ranged fighters the blind effect to snipe enemies from across the map, then have the melee fighters go to town on them. Plus the integration of S-breaks, which can be activated whenever it's your turn and the gauge is filled, although this doesn't cost you a turn. So feel free to massacre your enemies with 4 S-break moves when initiating battles, then continue with the normal turn order. And if that fails, you also have the chance to do team attacks. So one little attack and everybody piles in. I also love how weapons can be transformed instead of only being able to buy the best ones from shops. You also have extra features to keep you entertained, like cooking, with food giving restorative benefits, fishing to, catch fish, and best of all, head to the casino. There are enough side tasks to keep you distracted. Touching back on the battles, we get on to another positive this game has. You move along a grid instead of having the usual turn-based fights, but skills also have their own radius, some attacking enemies in a large area while others can attack anything in a straight line. It's a clever way to get you thinking about fights instead of the usual mash the stronger spell and win. There are even certain areas which boost your elemental spells, yet weaken others to give you a little bit more to think about. Now, with all that being said, this game does have a lot of issues, and it shows its age. It's very grindy. If you want to be a decent level and not have to struggle against even the basic enemies in each new area, you need to farm quartz and money to buy the best equipment and potions. Though you can avoid encounters entirely, when you have to fight a boss, you'll soon find yourself making use of the handy retry boss fight but lower difficulty feature. The difficulty is bizarrely balanced. While I didn't die many times, when I did, I found myself losing to that same enemy multiple times. With some story fights not even being telegraphed, then you're just thrust into a boss fight where you'll notice your teeth and bones quickly get turned to dust. There's also a lot of talking in this game, and I mean a lot. It puts most visual novels to shame. Almost every time you walk into a new area, you have to stop and wait 5 to 15 minutes for all the characters to say their piece before you can move 250 yards, only for them to stop and have another chat. And sadly, while I enjoyed the story, I did not like the main cast of characters. They can be summed up as generic hero, doormat, dog whisperer, and sexual predator. I hate how tropey these characters felt the entire way through my playthrough. I wish I could have swapped out my team and enjoyed the story even more. As much as I have issues with this game, a lot of it is fixed with the super helpful high speed option, so the sluggish movement and constant backtracking is now put on fast forward. And as much as the characters annoyed me, the actual mechanics of the game are highly entertaining. I would definitely recommend it to JRPG fans, but I would also put an asterisk by it. You will need patience when playing this game. So as I said, I was very, very close to dropping this after just doing, or attempting to do, the prologue. It was exceedingly slow. I hated the characters and it felt so formulaic so early on. I really had a poor impression of it. Even for the first 4, even 5 hours, I wouldn't say I was enjoying myself at the time. It was a case of please get better. And quite simply, if I wasn't doing a video on this series, I would have dropped it. Like, I would have dropped it before I even finished the prologue. But I am glad that I kept going with it. However, I still wouldn't have carried on if it wasn't for that high speed mode. Like, seriously, the game, the animations, the movement, everything is exceedingly slow for no real reason. Yet, you just kind of have to do it. And, like, the fast travel system isn't really fast travel. You still have to go to certain points. And the problem is, it's such a large starting area, such a large hub world, that it still takes ages to get to those. And then sometimes the game just decides, actually, the buses are busy, so you can't use them. It just drags on, and there's no real necessary reason for it. Like, it's not good for the story, it's just not good for the characters. Like, it's just frustrating. And the game itself is quite grindy anyway, so the fact that you're having to take everything so slowly, fight more and more monsters, it really does grate on the nerves. So thankfully that high speed mode is there to ease the pain. And I don't know whether it's just a case of this is a bad one to start from, but like, I really didn't like the characters, like, for the most part. There's the main cast I disliked more than quite a lot of the NPCs. I would have much rather had some of those NPCs just replace the main cast and just do over. Especially like the reporter, she was a good laugh, and yet the rest of them are just like, oh, Randy. I just wanna choke him. Like, I'm sick to death of playing games where one of the male characters just sees women as objects, literally just objects. And the problem is, like, almost every time you meet a female NPC for the first time, either he's trying to hit on them, or even the female cast just have to bring up something about appearance. Like, have to, like, oh wow, her skin's perfect, or her boobs are massive, yet she has such a thin waist. How is that possible? And it's just, I'm sick to death of that. So take away the characters, take away how slow the game is. It's actually decent. Like, it's a decent JRPG. If you speed that pace up with that high speed mode, if you ignore the characters and pay attention to the story itself, the setting, and the battle system, and all the customization, like, of putting those different little gems in to get new skills or boost other attacking skills and arts and stuff, that side of the game is really cool. And I think I understand why this series is so popular. It's because of that part of it. But if someone tells me that Randy is a good character, or Tio is, like, necessary, other than just being, okay, I can translate what a dog says for basically, like, the first 20 hours of the game, like, they're lying to you. Like, you could get rid of those characters and place them. Lloyd is just a very typical, at least in this game, is a very typical, just like, okay, I'm a hero, I want to help people. It's just blah. And yeah, it's one of those games which the mechanics of it all are really fun, really enjoyable. The story is actually really good for a video game. Like, obviously it's got its issues. It needs more of an interactive story as well because it's a video game. But you could easily make a movie out of it, or an anime series. But yeah, it's so slow at that start. Like, and just moving around. As an NPC once said in Persona 4, the square button is like magic. And it is, because just having that, press a button, and then you can choose where you want to go from that. It just saves so much time, so much busy work. And that's what this game desperately needs if it wants to get more of a mass appeal. Maybe it will in, like, future games, because I know this one was a re-release, a translation, not a fan translation, although it was. But it was a translation of, like, a 2010 game on the PSP. But yeah, it's tough. Like, I would recommend you playing it, just play on high speed mode though the entire time. Seriously, just don't ever take it off unless you, like, have to for, like, the fishing mini games. But I'm glad I stuck with it, but I would have dropped it. And I don't know, in some ways maybe I would have been happy at dropping it. But no, seriously, mechanics are great, story's great, the setting's interesting. On the characters,